Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Senator Borrello for those questions. And before I start, what I originally wanted to say, I want to answer a quick point that he referenced. One of the things that Senator Borrello mentioned was that this could be the beginning of a slippery slope. So we don't like private prisons. That could end up taking us to cigarettes. That could end up taking us to car dealerships, et cetera. The only small nuance here is that private prisons are actually illegal in New York State. And so I think it does fair to reason that if something is illegal in New York State, that you can say to state-chartered banks, you're not permitted to lend to those institutions. And I think that's the nuance that I think is worth mentioning here. It is not our goal to destroy banks and to destroy business and small businesses, but it is our goal to have values and to make sure that our institutions live up to the values that we set as a society. And quite frankly, New York State in 2007 was very clear that we will not operate for private prisons, and so therefore, we should not be investing through our pension funds in private prisons, nor should any of our state-chartered banks be lending to private prisons. One of the things that gives me some level of hope here is that since I came to the Senate in 2017, at that time, as it was mentioned, our pension fund had some money in private prisons, and it was indirect. And because of advocacy, Comptroller Tom DiNapoli said, "You know what, Senator Benjamin, you're right. Let's pull out this $10 million. It's not just symbolic; it's actually real money, and we should put that into something else." The banks stepped up, Bank of America, Chase, and others, and said, we will decide to stop lending. Just because those things happen does not mean that we are not obligated to make sure that any opportunity for investments in private prisons of any kind be stopped. Why is that? So I think it's important to not forget what we're talking about here. Private prisons, on their face, make their money by having more incarceration. I mean, that is fundamentally the business model. As someone who, like others, come from a business background, I understand how businesses work, and when you operate a business, one of the things you want to do is increase revenues, right? And you want to keep costs low so that you can have more profit. In this case, increasing the revenue is more people incarcerated. Decreasing costs is giving them less stuff so that you can have more profit. There is no place for private business in corrections. And I wanted to use that word corrections because that's what it's supposed to be. When folks are incarcerated, we're supposed to be trying to correct. We're supposed to be trying to rehabilitate. Private businesses are not interested in rehabilitating or correcting. They're interested in making profits. And so we have to keep that in the public space. There are states that have made decisions to contract with private prisons because it keeps costs low and they believe the private prisons will operate the business better than they would. But it should not be a business. This should be about taking folks who have made mistakes, trying to rehabilitate, correct, and prepare them to be reintegrated back into society, not to allow for some private businesses to make shareholder wealth off of the backs of those who've been incarcerated. And I will also add, as we are seeing what's going on in Portland right now and federal agents swarming the country here, immigration detention facilities, those should not be privately run either. There are a number of people who are coming to this country seeking asylum. The fact that they're being thrown into some of these horrendous facilities, we should be ashamed of ourselves as a country. And so if anything we could do or I can do to try to create a situation where there is no lending of any kind to any of these facilities, I will always do it. And I look forward to the day where we have a president who will take this to the next step and not allow any federally chartered prisons to be owned or operated by any private entity. This has got to be in the public space. I don't even want to start getting into some of the things we've seen with some of the judges, Mr. President, being bribed by some of these businesses, the fact that they literally use campaign donations to try to encourage more and longer sentences. That's a known fact. This is just not the kind of businesses that should be operating in this country. And I look forward to the day when we no longer have one private prison in the United States. Thank you, Mr. President.